There is a truth that most people will spend their entire lives avoiding, and it is this: motivation lies to you. It tells you that you will feel ready when the moment comes. It tells you that one day the energy will be there, the clarity will be there, the perfect conditions will be there, and then you will move. But that day does not come. Not because you are broken, not because you lack talent, not because the universe has decided against you, but because motivation was never the foundation you were supposed to build on. Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment. Let that sink in. Not enthusiasm, not inspiration, not a surge of energy after watching something that moved you. The bridge is discipline. And if you do not build that bridge with your own hands, brick by brick, day by day, the gap between where you are and where you want to be will remain exactly as wide as it is today. Now think about what it means to wait for motivation. Picture a farmer who walks out to his field every morning and looks at the soil. Some mornings he feels excited. He sees the potential. He feels the energy in his chest. He wants to plant and tend and build. But other mornings he is tired. The cold bothers him. The work feels heavy before it even begins. Now, here is the question you must sit with. Does the farmer only plant on the days he feels like it? Of course not, because the farmer understands something fundamental that most people have not yet learned. The season does not negotiate with your feelings. The harvest does not appear because you wanted it badly enough on a Tuesday afternoon. The harvest appears because the work was done, day after day, whether the feeling was present or not. You are that farmer. The field is your life, and the season is already turning, whether you are planting or not. Now ask yourself honestly, and do not let yourself off the hook with a comfortable answer. How many times have you waited to feel motivated and found that the feeling never came? How many mornings have you told yourself that tomorrow you would start, that tomorrow the conditions would be better, that tomorrow you would have more energy, more clarity, more will? And how many of those tomorrows have passed without the action ever appearing? This is not a small failure. This is not a personal deficiency that sets you apart from others. This is the most common and most costly pattern in human life. The person who understands that discipline must replace motivation as the daily operating system of their life gains an enormous and permanent advantage over everyone still waiting to feel ready. The decision to act, made in advance and kept regardless of feeling, is worth more than any surge of excitement you will ever experience. Success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines, practiced every day. Read that again. A few simple disciplines, practiced every day. The word simple is not there to make you comfortable. It is there to strip away your excuse that the path is too complex, too mysterious, too far above your current level. The disciplines that produce extraordinary results are not complicated. Wake when you plan to wake. Do the work you committed to doing. Honor the boundaries you set for your time and your energy. Review what you are working toward so you do not drift. These are not secrets. They are not the hidden knowledge of a privileged few. They are available to every person who decides to practice them. And yet most people do not. Not because they cannot, but because they keep waiting for the motivation to make it easier. They are waiting for the discipline to feel good before they begin. But here is what no one tells you clearly enough. Discipline does not feel good at first. It feels like resistance. It feels like dragging yourself against the grain of what is comfortable. That friction is not a sign that something is wrong. That friction is the work itself. Think about what happens inside a seed planted in the ground. You cannot see it. There is no visible progress. The surface of the soil looks exactly the same the day after you plant as it did before. For days, sometimes weeks, there is nothing to show. A person without patience looks at that ground and says, nothing is happening. This is not working. Maybe I planted wrong. Maybe this soil is not right for me. But the person who understands growth knows that the most important work is always invisible at first. The roots push down before the shoot pushes up. The foundation is laid in the dark before anything appears in the light. Your discipline works exactly the same way. The days when you do the work and see no result, the days when you hold to the standard and feel no reward, those are the days the roots are forming. Those are the days that will hold you upright when the storms come. Do not abandon the ground because it looks empty. It is never empty when you are working it with intention and consistency. Now, let me tell you something important about the relationship between discipline and identity. Most people think of discipline as something they apply to tasks. They think, I need discipline to exercise, I need discipline to study, I need discipline to save money. And that framing keeps discipline feeling like an external force, something you summon and then lose, something outside of yourself. But the person who transforms their life does not think of discipline as a tool they pick up and put down. They think of it as a characteristic, a definition. They do not say, I am trying to be disciplined. They say, I am a disciplined person, and therefore this is what I do. That distinction sounds small. It is not small. When you act from identity, you do not negotiate with yourself every morning. You do not stand in front of the day asking whether you feel like showing up. You show up because that is who you are, and everything else follows from that. The most powerful change you can make is not a change in your schedule or your habits or your routines. It is a change in the story you tell about yourself. Now ask yourself honestly, what story have you been telling? Have you been saying, I am someone who struggles with consistency. I am someone who starts strong and fades. I am someone who wants to do better but always finds a reason not to. If that has been the story, it is not a life sentence. But you have to be willing to write a new one. And writing a new story is not done with words. It is done with actions. Small, specific, repeated actions that accumulate into evidence. Every time you do the thing you committed to doing, despite not feeling like it, you add one more piece of evidence to the case that you are a disciplined person. Every time you fold, every time you negotiate yourself down from the standard, you add evidence to the other case. The verdict is not decided by one day. It is decided by the weight of accumulated evidence over time. Start adding the right evidence today. We must all suffer one of two things: the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. Think about that. There is no option that involves no pain. That is not how life is constructed. If you choose discipline, you accept a certain kind of pain, the discomfort of early mornings, the tedium of repetition, the frustration of slow progress, the sacrifice of immediate pleasure for future reward. That pain is real. Do not let anyone tell you it is not. But the pain of discipline has a quality that the pain of regret does not have. The pain of discipline ends. It softens. It becomes something you recognize and move through with increasing ease. The pain of regret does not end. Regret compound. It sits at the back of every quiet moment and grows heavier as the years pass. The person who did not develop discipline at 25 carries a heavier weight of regret at 50 than any discipline ever cost. You are choosing your pain either way. The only question is which pain you are willing to accept, and which one will serve you, and which one will hollow you out. Let me ask you something that I want you to take seriously. When you imagine the version of yourself that you most want to become, what does that person do differently from what you are doing right now? Not what do they have. Not what circumstances have arranged themselves around that person. What do they do? Because I guarantee you that the primary difference is not luck, and it is not talent, and it is not an opportunity that came to them and not to you. The primary difference is that the person you want to become does the necessary work on the days they do not feel like doing it. They do not have a special reservoir of motivation that you lack. They have a commitment to themselves that overrides the daily fluctuations of feeling. They have decided in advance that certain things will be done regardless of how the morning feels. That is the entire secret. Decide in advance. Keep the decision. Repeat. Now think about a pilot preparing for a flight. The checklist does not change based on how the pilot feels that morning. It does not shorten because the pilot slept poorly or because something personal is weighing on their mind. Every item is checked. Every protocol is followed. Not because the pilot is excited about checklists, not because the ritual of preparation fills them with inspiration, but because the outcome depends on it, and the pilot knows that feelings are not a reliable guide when stakes are high. Your life is a high-stakes situation. The commitments you make to yourself deserve the same level of professional respect that a pilot gives to a pre-flight check. Not sometimes. Not when the inspiration is there. Every time. Because the outcome of your life depends on whether those things are done, not on whether you felt like doing them. If you really want to do something, you will find a way. If you do not, you will find an excuse. Let that settle in, not a reason. An excuse. The mind is extraordinarily creative when it is looking for reasons not to act. It will find complexity where there is none. It will manufacture uncertainty. It will identify obstacles that are either minor or entirely imaginary and magnify them until they feel like walls. I am not saying obstacles are not real. I am saying that the person who is committed to finding a way will find a way through real obstacles. And the person who is looking for an excuse will find an excuse, even in the absence of any real obstacle at all. Which search are you conducting right now? When you think about the thing you know you should be doing, the work you have been putting off, the standard you have been failing to hold, are you looking for a way or are you looking for an excuse? The answer to that question tells you more about your future than any external circumstance ever could. Now let me bring you to something that people rarely want to sit with, because it requires a kind of honesty that is uncomfortable. The discipline you have right now is sufficient evidence of the priorities you actually hold. Not the priorities you say you hold. Not the priorities you believe you hold in the abstract. The actual priorities. The ones that show up in behavior, because behavior does not lie. You can say that your health is important, but if you consistently skip the work that maintains it, then at the level of behavior, health is not a priority. You can say that your goals matter, but if you consistently choose comfort over the actions that lead to those goals, then at the level of behavior, comfort is the actual priority. This is not a condemnation. It is an inventory, an honest inventory. And honest inventories are enormously valuable because they show you exactly where the gap is between who you say you are and who you actually are at this moment. That gap is the precise location where your work needs to happen. Affirmation without discipline is the beginning of delusion. Think about that carefully. There is nothing wrong with believing in yourself. There is nothing wrong with holding a vision of what your life can become. Vision matters. But vision without the daily structure of discipline does not build anything. It floats. And a person who floats on affirmations while avoiding the work begins to drift into a kind of self-deception that is genuinely dangerous, because they feel like they are doing something by thinking positively. They feel like they are moving toward the goal by seeing it clearly in their mind. And all the while, the days pass, and the actions are not taken, and the gap between the vision and the reality grows wider. Believing in your potential is not the same as developing your potential. One happens in your mind. The other happens in the world, through effort, through repetition, through discipline applied to specific work over time. Now think about water and stone. A river does not break through rock because of one massive surge of force. It moves through stone through the patient and constant and relentless application of pressure over time. One drop of water is nothing against granite, but 10,000 drops and then 100,000 applied to the same point day after day, year after year, will carve a canyon. This is exactly how discipline works in a life. You are not looking for the one dramatic moment of effort that changes everything. You are building the canyon, and the canyon is built by doing the small, specific thing today and doing it again tomorrow and again after that, without requiring that any single day produce a visible result. The result is the accumulation. The result is the total weight of all those days pressed together in one direction. You are either carving your canyon right now, or you are standing at the surface of the stone wondering why nothing has changed. Let me tell you something that the world will not tell you, because it is easier to sell you the promise of ease than the reality of growth. No one is coming to do this for you. No one is coming to hand you the discipline. No one is coming to wake you when you should be awake. No one is coming to sit you down at the work when you would rather be somewhere comfortable. No one is coming to guard your time, protect your commitments, or enforce your standards. No one. That is not a dark thought. That is a liberating thought, if you let it be. Because it means that the moment you accept full ownership, full responsibility, full authority over your own behavior, no obstacle between you and who you want to become requires anyone else's permission or participation to remove. You are the only actor in this scene that matters. Everything else is weather. You dress for the weather. You do not wait for the weather to become perfect before you step outside. Work harder on yourself than you do on your job. That is not a suggestion to neglect your professional responsibilities. It is a recognition that the person who shows up to every external obligation without ever turning that same discipline inward will eventually hit a ceiling that no external effort can break through. Your job can give you a paycheck. Only you can give yourself a character. Only you can give yourself the habits, the mental clarity, the resilience, the consistency that makes everything else you touch better and stronger. The most important project you will ever manage is the construction of the person who does all the other things. And that construction requires daily work. It requires that you treat your own growth with the same seriousness and structure that you give to the responsibilities other people can see and evaluate. Because the version of you that exists 10 years from now will be almost entirely the result of how seriously you took your own development during the years in between. Now ask yourself this, and let it be a real question, not a rhetorical one. What is the one area of your life where you know, without any doubt, that more discipline would change everything? Not the area where you are already doing well. The area where the gap is largest. The area where you keep telling yourself you will get serious soon, you will start properly when things settle down, you will make it a real priority once this current period passes. That area, that is where the work needs to happen. Not in the comfortable places, in the uncomfortable one. Because the place that requires the most from you is always the place that will give you the most back if you face it directly and work it consistently. Comfort expands you nowhere. It is the resistance that makes you grow. You cannot change your destination overnight, but you can change your direction overnight. And that distinction is one of the most important ideas you will ever sit with. People give up on change because they expect the destination to be reached quickly. And when it is not, they conclude that the change is not working. But change does not work at the level of destination. It works at the level of direction. When a ship turns 2 degrees in open water, you do not see the difference immediately. An hour later, you might notice a slight shift. A day later, the difference is significant. A week later, the ship is in entirely different waters. Your daily discipline is that 2-degree turn. You will not see the destination change overnight, but you can change the direction tonight, right now, by deciding what standard you will hold tomorrow, and holding it again the next day. Over time, the small, consistent turn becomes an entirely different trajectory. Over time, the disciplined life and the undisciplined life diverge so far apart that the people living them can barely recognize the world the other one inhabits. The major value in life is not what you get. The major value in life is what you become. Let that land. Because most of the conversation around success is focused on acquisition. What you earn, what you own, what position you hold, what recognition you receive. And those things are real. They have value, but they are downstream of something more fundamental. They are the output. The person is the input. And the person you are becoming or failing to become every single day determines what the output of your life will eventually be. You do not get a different harvest by wanting different fruit. You get a different harvest by becoming a different kind of farmer. By learning more, practicing more, developing more, building more into yourself every day. The discipline that feels like sacrifice now is not costing you anything. It is building you. It is compounding inside you the way interest compounds in an account. And one day, after enough days of that quiet compounding, the person looking back at you in the mirror will be so far beyond the person who stood there waiting for motivation that you will barely believe they were ever the same. Now, here is what I want you to carry with you from everything said today. Motivation is a visitor. It comes when conditions are favorable, when something excites or inspires you, and then it leaves when the conditions change. And conditions always change. Discipline is a resident. It lives in your house because you built it a room and gave it a key. It does not wait for favorable conditions. It does not arrive because the morning felt right or the season felt ready. It is already inside you, already in place, because you built it there deliberately, practice by practice, day by day. The person you want to become is not waiting for you in some future moment when everything aligns. That person is built right now, in the choice you make today when you do not feel like it, in the standard you hold today when it would be easier to let it slide, in the work you do today when no one is watching and no reward is immediate. That person is assembled from the ordinary days where you chose discipline over comfort, direction over drift, action over the comfortable, waiting for a motivation that was never going to save you. Stop waiting for the feeling. Force yourself to act. Show up now. The discipline that builds your life will not come from anywhere else. It can only come from you.